Chapter 15, Yellow Sand Dog. Evening. The three of them took their leave. After some discussion, Su Fugui and Sun Yulan both decided to wait a little longer. If the secret realm didn't prove to be too dangerous, they would then go in to try their luck. Inside the secret realm, the greatest danger is actually the other cultivators exploring alongside you. Li Chang'an said earnestly, adding a few more words of warning. Wealth tempts the heart. When faced with treasure, even blood brothers might turn on each other. In an environment like a secret realm, acts of murder for treasure would surely be common. This secret realm might hold an opportunity for me as well. After watching the three of them leave, Li Chang'an pondered for a long time. Although he wouldn't be entering the secret realm himself, but there would always be cultivators who brought treasures out of it. Sure enough, before long, a dedicated area for selling treasures from the secret realm appeared in the marketplace's trading district. Large numbers of loose cultivators gathered here. They laid out the various treasures they had obtained in the secret realm. Damaged magical artifacts and spiritual artifacts, elixir pills of unknown effect, bizarre materials, and so on. The array of items was dazzling, and their prices varied. But most of them were useless. They only looked good on the outside. Their insides had completely decayed. Even the finest treasure will grow dim and lose its luster under the erosion of time. Li Chang'an felt a surge of emotion after strolling through the trading district. That night, midnight, a new divination appeared. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, neutral. You head to the trading district for a stroll, hoping to find a bargain, but you come away empty-handed. Seeing the content of the divination, Li Chang'an couldn't help but smile. The secret realm has only just opened. Perhaps there will be a chance to find a bargain in the future. Of course, whether he could find a bargain or not didn't affect his mood. It would be best if he could. If not, so be it. Time flew by. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. Within the marketplace, the interest many loose cultivators had in the secret realm hadn't waned. On the contrary, it had grown even stronger. This was because some had obtained great opportunities within these 3 months. I heard someone obtained an inheritance of skills, and someone else discovered an ancient spirit pill that hadn't lost much of its efficacy. All sorts of rumors circulated through the marketplace. Another night fell. Li Chang'an sat cross-legged, silently waiting for the new divination. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, Auspicious. You go out to inquire about news and hear that the beast master Wang Hu encountered danger in the secret realm. Afflicted with cold poison, he is urgently seeking an earth-fire stone to expel the cold. You then go to make a trade and obtain a Tier 1 middle-stage spirit beast. A spirit beast. Li Chang'an's eyes lit up. Finally, an auspicious reading, and it's exactly the kind I need. Right now, his cultivation was his greatest weakness. A Tier 1 middle-stage spirit beast is comparable in strength to a human race cultivator at the middle stage of chi refining. Furthermore, spirit beasts were bound by a spirit contract. There was no need to worry about loyalty. As long as he could obtain one, it would be like gaining a loyal guard at the middle stage of chi refining. I never thought the earth-fire stone could bring me such a great benefit. Li Chang'an took out the earth-fire stone, rubbing it gently. He had originally planned to trade it for a wood element treasure, but a spirit beast was clearly better. If Wu Yun had possessed a Tier 1 middle-stage spirit beast for protection back then, he wouldn't have died such an unsightly death. The moment he thought of this, Li Chang'an couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Daoist Wu was truly a good person. Not only did he give him spirit stones, elixir pills, and a magical artifact, he even delivered a Tier 1 middle-stage spirit beast. If Daoist Wu could come back to life, I'd have to thank him properly. A smile touched Li Chang'an's lips. He was in a good mood. The next day, Li Chang'an finished his breakfast. He then headed out to the marketplace's trading district. The trading district was already the most frequented area in the marketplace for cultivators, and it had become even more bustling after the appearance of the secret realm. It was bustling with a jostling crowd, just like a market in the mortal world. Ancient spirit medicine and ancient spirit pills for sale. A cyan moon eagle beast egg can match a middle stage of chi refining cultivator when it matures, selling it cheap. Black gold bear demon beast flesh and blood, highly nutritious when eaten. The shouts of vendors and the buzz of conversations rose and fell. There were quite a few people like Li Chang'an, who came here with no specific goal, just hoping to find a bargain. Others were there just to socialize and get the latest information about the secret realm. Did you hear? 2 more seniors at the late stage of qi refining died in the secret realm. That secret realm is truly dangerous. Even the Zheng family lost an elder at the qi refining 9th layer. All kinds of news reached his ears. With a calm expression, Li Chang'an passed through the noisy trading district. The residence of that senior, Wang Hu, was just behind the trading district. Along the way, Li Chang'an managed to gather some information about him. Senior Wang Hu was injured. Cold poison has invaded his body, and he's trying to buy a fire element treasure. However, most of the fire element treasures in the marketplace had been bought up by the Zheng family. This was because the Zheng family was an alchemy family, forging pill furnaces, nurturing pill fire, refining elixir pills. None of these could be done without fire element treasures. For some unknown reason, Wang Hu hadn't sought help from the Zheng family, but was instead trying to buy from the loose cultivators in the marketplace. Li Chang'an was lost in thought. Soon, he arrived outside the courtyard where Wang Hu lived and knocked on the gate. Knock, knock, knock. A moment later, a pale-faced old man opened the gate. Wang Hu, middle stage of qi refining cultivation, a tier 1 middle-grade beast master. Young friend, what brings you here? Senior, I have an earth-fire stone. Li Chang'an got straight to the point. Hearing this, Wang Hu's body trembled. Young friend, please come in quickly. The two entered the courtyard. Li Chang'an took out the earth-fire stone and handed it directly to Wang Hu. Excitement flashed in Wang Hu's eyes, but he didn't take the stone. Instead, he gave Li Chang'an a few extra glances. Young friend, to think you trust this old man so much. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The cultivation realm was simply filled with deception and treachery. When a transaction involved a tier 1 top-grade treasure like the earth-fire stone, one could never be too cautious. Yet Li Chang'an had offered it so openly. Young friend, if you have such transactions in the future, you must be extremely careful. Wang Hu advised. He felt that Li Chang'an was likely one of those simple-minded cultivators who focused solely on cultivation immortality, oblivious to the wickedness in people's hearts. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt a sense of goodwill toward Li Chang'an. Such cultivators were a rare sight these days. Little did he know, the only reason Li Chang'an dared to act this way was purely because of the divination. Senior, are we still making the trade? Li Chang'an asked, a little puzzled. Wang Hu stroked his beard and smiled, his attitude very gentle. Of course we are. Young friend, please follow me. He led Li Chang'an to the rear courtyard, which was where he kept his spirit beasts. There were more than 10 spirit beasts in the courtyard. Most were at the tier 1 early stage, with only 3 having reached the tier 1 middle stage. Young friend, this old man is willing to trade this yellow sand dog for the earth-fire stone in your hand. What do you think? He pointed a finger toward the one with the most powerful aura among the 3 spirit beasts. Tier 1 middle stage peak. Comparable to a human race cultivator at the qi refining 6th layer. Li Chang'an was stunned and asked, Senior, aren't you getting the short end of the stick? He had originally thought he could, at most, trade for one that had just entered the middle stage. But the value of that yellow sand dog far exceeded the earth-fire stone. Wang Hu smiled and shook his head. Young friend, you have a pure heart and your cultivation is still shallow. You need a capable helper, or you will find it difficult to take even a single step in the cultivation immortality realm. Initially, he had indeed planned to trade away the weakest of the 3 spirit beasts. But the bit of goodwill he had just developed made him change his mind. Chapter 16. Foundation Establishment Struggle. Wang Hu's words left Li Chang'an stunned. After just a few words, he concluded that Li Chang'an was pure of heart. This judgment is a bit rash. Li Chang'an complained inwardly. He felt that this senior was the one who was truly pure-hearted. But this was good too. This way, he could gain more from the transaction. Young friend, what do you think? Wang Hu asked patiently, his expression gentle. Li Chang'an immediately nodded in agreement. Afterward, the two signed a spirit contract, officially completing the transaction. Chang'an obtained a Tier 1 middle stage peak yellow sand dog. He patted the spiritual dog's head, overjoyed. Canine spirit beasts are famously loyal. This yellow sand dog is not only powerful but also skilled at tracking. It will be a great help to me. Nearby, Wang Hu was also smiling. The quality of the earth-fire stone was even better than he had imagined, and he was very satisfied. Both parties got what they wanted. At that moment, Chang'an voiced the question that had been on his mind. Senior, the Zhang family should have a good stock of fire element treasures. Why didn't you trade with them? The Zhang family. Wang Hu shook his head slightly. He put away the earth-fire stone and began to explain. Young friend, the Zhang family has gone into a conflict with the other two great foundation establishment clans. They're in desperate need of manpower, so it's best not to seek their help right now. I see. Chang'an understood. This involved a struggle between foundation establishment clans. The profits from the marketplace were enormous, yet the Zhang family monopolized them. The other foundation establishment clans were naturally displeased. The foundation establishment Cao family and Wu family were also in this region, forming a triangular standoff with the Zhang family. These two great families each had an early stage of foundation establishment ancestor, and were eyeing the Zhang family covetously. However, the Zhang family had two foundation establishment ancestors, one of whom was a middle stage of foundation establishment expert. The Cao and Wu families had no choice but to join forces against the Zhang family. In past years, the two sides often clashed, but it was always kept within controllable limits. However, after the secret realm opened, the disciples of the families frequently came to blows over the treasures in the secret realm. The conflict escalated, and the fighting grew more brutal. A few days ago, a Qi refining 9th layer elder from the Zhang family died in the secret realm. It was the work of the Wu and Cao families acting together. Wang Hu slowly recounted what he knew. After all, he had braved the secret realm himself. He had heard quite a bit of news. All three great families have lost high-ranking members. This matter will not end easily. So that's how it is. Thank you for telling me, Senior. Chang'an couldn't help but feel relieved. Thankfully, I've completely broken ties with the Zhang family. No matter how desperate they were for manpower, they couldn't forcibly conscript him. From now on, the situation in the secret realm will only grow more dangerous. Staying in the marketplace is the best choice. Young friend, you must not risk your life for some so-called opportunity. At this, Wang Hu sighed. He himself hadn't been able to resist. He'd heard that many people had found opportunities, so he decided to try his luck, clinging to a sliver of hope. But the result? He was grievously injured and suffered heavy losses. Thank you for your warning, Senior. I will take it to heart. Chang'an said with a solemn expression, cupping his hands in thanks. Afterward, the two chatted for about a quarter of an hour. Chang'an learned more information about the secret realm. Back in his room, Chang'an began to carefully examine the spirit beast he had just acquired. From now on, I'll call you Dawang, he said with a smile, patting the spiritual dog's head. In his previous life, when he was still a child, he had raised a mutt named Dawang. That dog had a reddish-yellow coat and a strong build, looking almost identical to the spiritual dog before him. Unfortunately, a thief later broke into his home. Dawang fought with the intruder to protect him and died from his injuries. Woof! The spiritual dog opened its mouth wide, its tongue lolling out. Its eyes were bright and lively, and its tail wagged nonstop. He seemed to like the name a lot and looked very happy. Judging by its appearance alone, you would never guess it was a spirit beast. It looked just like an ordinary mutt. But its strength and talent were quite remarkable. The bloodline of a spirit beast like the yellow sand dog is middle grade, which is equivalent to a human race cultivator's middle spirit root. The bloodline tiers of demon beasts were categorized the same way as the spiritual roots of the human race. From lowest to highest they were inferior bloodline, low-grade bloodline, middle-grade bloodline, top-grade bloodline, earth-grade bloodline, and celestial-grade bloodline. In other words, Dawang surpassed his master, Chang'an, in both strength and potential. Dawang, I'm counting on you to protect me from now on. Woof woof. The man and his dog got along harmoniously, sharing a cheerful atmosphere. In the following days, Chang'an tested Dawang's abilities. As an earth spirit beast, Dawang was especially skilled at earth escape, able to travel underground without a sound. This ability was particularly satisfying to Li Chang'an. He instructed Dahuang to dig more tunnels underground. If something unexpected happens one day and even the marketplace is no longer safe, I can use these tunnels to escape, Li Chang'an thought. It never hurt to be prepared. Furthermore, Li Chang'an also taught Dahuang how to use talismans. Dahuang was already strong enough, but with the aid of talismans, his power would rise to another level. It's just a shame I don't have a spirit beast bag. It's really inconvenient. A spirit beast bag was similar in size to a storage pouch, but its value far exceeded that of a storage pouch. This was because a storage pouch could only hold inanimate objects, while a spirit beast bag could sustain a living spirit beast inside it. Even the most common spirit beast bag was worth over 1,000 spirit stones. For now, Li Chang'an could only dream about it. Half a month later, Wu Feng suddenly appeared with a piece of news. Taoist Li, I have great news. Oh? Li Chang'an was slightly puzzled. Taoist Wu, what is this great news? A senior I know obtained a talismanic inheritance in the secret realm. Taoist Li, take a guess. What tier is the talismanic inheritance? Wu Feng was all smiles, his gaze subtly sweeping over Li Chang'an's face. A look of pleasant surprise appeared on Li Chang'an's face as he asked eagerly, could it be a Tier 2 inheritance? Well, Wu Feng froze, the corner of his mouth twitching. Even for a lie, that's way too unrealistic. If a Tier 2 inheritance truly appeared, it would have sent the entire marketplace into an uproar long ago. After all, a Tier 2 inheritance was enough to ensure the everlasting prosperity of a Foundation establishment clan. It's a Tier 1 middle-grade inheritance, and that old senior plans to trade it right here in the marketplace. There will be a small trade meet in a few days. Wu Feng had thought it through carefully. Li Chang'an was, after all, just an early stage of qi refining cultivator. Whether it was the Foundation establishment tomb or a Foundation establishment spiritual object like the Earth Dragon saliva, they were all too far out of his reach. But the art of crafting Tier 1 middle-grade talismans was something he desperately needed right now. As expected, Li Chang'an's eyes lit up, and he seemed tempted. Taoist Wu, please tell me the time and location of this small trade meet. The time is tentatively set for 3 days from now. As for the location, Wu Feng sneered inwardly. I've finally lured this old turtle out of his shell. The so-called small trade meet was a trap, a heaven and earth net already laid out. As long as Li Chang'an went, he was as good as dead. Chapter 17. The spirit beast shows its might. Wu Feng told Li Chang'an the time and place. He even added a thoughtful reminder. Taoist Li, a Tier 1 middle-grade inheritance is quite valuable. You'd better be prepared. There will certainly be many others competing with you for it. Thank you for telling me, Taoist Wu. Li Chang'an looked excited and said he would definitely go. A moment later, Wu Feng cupped his hands and took his leave. Li Chang'an closed the door and asked Dahuang, who had been hiding in the room the whole time. Dahuang, did you memorize his aura? Dahuang nodded with a serious expression on his face. Besides Earth Escape, his greatest skill was tracking. Go, don't let him discover you. Li Chang'an patted Dahuang's head. In the past, he could only react passively to Wu Feng's group of tribulation cultivators. Now with Dahuang, he could finally see some initiative. At this moment, Wu Feng was hurrying toward the exit of the marketplace. He was completely unaware that a yellow sand dog was following him. Before long, Wu Feng left the marketplace area. About a quarter of an hour later, he arrived at a small manor. Big brother, second brother, it's done, Wu Feng said with a smile as he walked into the manor. Dahuang stopped cautiously. He watched the manor from a distance, not getting any closer. He sensed 2 powerful auras. Both were at the middle stage of qi refining. After a while, Wu Feng left the manor and headed back toward the marketplace. But before he reached the marketplace, the ground suddenly gave way beneath his feet. Not good. Wu Feng's expression changed drastically as he plunged straight into the earth. In an instant, a vast demonic power surged from the dark world underground, seeming to be everywhere at once. Wu Feng reacted quickly. With a flash of spiritual light from his hand, he immediately activated more than 10 self-defense talismans. Several of them were Tier 1 middle-grade talismans. However, these talismans were completely useless. Whoosh! Yellow sand billowed as a demonic wind raged. In the span of a single breath, the talismans around Wu Feng dimmed and shattered, ground to dust by the raging yellow sand. The next instant, hard rock enveloped his entire body, turning him into a stone statue. This was Da Wang's talent technique, rock armor technique, which could be used to restrain enemies or protect himself. Amidst the swirling yellow sand, Da Wang appeared, bit down on Wu Feng's calf, and used the earth escape technique to rush back to the marketplace. This was a suppression born of absolute power. Wu Feng had no strength to resist whatsoever, and could only let himself be dragged away. In just a few moments, a stone statue appeared in Li Chang'an's room. Da Wang, you can remove the rock armor from his head. Upon receiving the order, Da Wang wagged his tail. Soon Wu Feng's head was revealed, but his body remained bound. Taoist Wu, we meet again. Li Chang'an wore a smile, as if greeting an old friend he hadn't seen in years. Wu Feng's heart trembled. He knew this was bad. He forced a smile. Taoist Li, what is the meaning of this? As he spoke, he glanced at Da Wang standing beside him. A chill instantly ran down his spine. Who would have thought that a mere junior cultivator at the Qi refining third layer like Li Chang'an would possess a spirit beast at the Tier 1 middle stage peak? The tyrannical aura radiating from Da Wang alone was enough to make it hard for him to breathe. Taoist Li, could there be some misunderstanding between us? Wu Feng's voice trembled slightly as he clung to a sliver of hope. He felt a pang of regret. If I had known about this spiritual dog's existence, I would have stayed as far away as possible. It now seemed likely that his younger brother, Wu Yun, had died under the spiritual dog's claws. Taoist Wu, you and I both know very well there is no misunderstanding. Li Chang'an shook his head slightly and asked bluntly, how many people are in your group of tribulation cultivators, and why are you targeting me? Tribulation cultivator, what tribulation cultivator? Wu Feng's face paled as he still tried to deny it. Li Chang'an pointed to the area around the room. He said meaningfully, Taoist Wu, I've already activated a sound insulation talisman. No matter what happens in this room, no sound will escape. The meaning behind his words was obvious. If Wu Feng didn't start talking, he would surely resort to torture. Hearing this, a chill crept up Wu Feng's spine. The smile on his face completely vanished, and cold sweat beaded on his forehead. He finally broke down and began to beg for mercy. Taoist Li, it has nothing to do with me. I was forced into it. Oh? Li Chang'an smiled. Taoist Wu, why don't you tell me how you were forced? Yes. Wu Feng hastily explained. According to him, he and his younger brother, Wu Yun, were originally just ordinary cultivators. Later, during a treasure hunting trip, they were unfortunately captured by two tribulation cultivators at the middle stage of Qi refining. Those tribulation cultivators threatened us. They said if we didn't do their bidding, they would kill us immediately. At this point, Wu Feng's voice took on a sorrowful tone, and he desperately squeezed out a few tears. After that, the two brothers became henchmen for the tribulation cultivators, responsible for luring people out of the marketplace. What are the cultivation levels of those two tribulation cultivators? Li Chang'an asked. One is at the Qi refining 6th layer, and the other is at the Qi refining 5th layer. Wu Feng didn't dare to hide anything and answered honestly. Hearing this, Li Chang'an pondered for a moment. Those two tribulation cultivators are too strong. If we fight them head-on, Da Wang can only handle one. I'd have to deal with the other myself. But I have no desire to face an opponent at the middle stage of Qi, refining directly. Unless Da Wang can break through to the Tier 1 late stage, it's not wise to make a move. I should just stay inside the marketplace. Li Chang'an made up his mind. As long as he didn't leave the marketplace, the tribulation cultivators couldn't do anything to him. If the tribulation cultivators decided to risk attacking him at his home, the divination would give him a warning. Worst comes to worst, I'll just run. You still haven't said why those two tribulation cultivators are targeting me. Taoist Li, I find this strange as well. Wu Feng shook his head. He truly didn't know. In his opinion, there were many more suitable targets in the marketplace than Li Chang'an. There was no need to waste time and energy on an old turtle like Li Chang'an. In the past, they would switch targets after failing once or twice, but this time, they've kept their focus on you. Is that so? Li Chang'an was lost in thought. It seems there's more to this than meets the eye. Could it really be Zhang Jinbao? Taoist Li, I've told you everything I know. Can you let me go now? Wu Feng asked cautiously, his expression tense. I can swear to the heavens that I will never reveal what happened today to anyone. Don't worry, Taoist Wu, I'll let you go. Hearing this, Wu Feng instantly breathed a sigh of relief. But the next instant, a cold glint flashed before his eyes. Xianxia. A thin bloodline appeared starkly on his neck. Wu Feng's eyes went wide, his mouth agape. He seemed to want to say something, but no words came out. Thud. A head fell to the floor. A look of despair was still etched on its face. With an indifferent expression, Li Chang'an wiped the blood from his cyan wood sword. All right, Da Huang, you can let him go now. Chapter 18, Secret Realm Treasure Chest. With that, both brothers, Wu Yun and Wu Feng, were dead at Li Chang'an's hands. Li Chang'an let out a sigh. Friend Wu Yun, I've sent your brother down to reunite with you. Then he skillfully searched Wu Feng's corpse and took his storage pouch. After a quick glance at the contents of the storage pouch, Li Chang'an's face broke into a wide grin. There's so much good stuff in here. The treasures in Wu Feng's storage pouch were in no way inferior to his brother's. Over 100 spirit stones, and various common elixir pills, talismans, and the like. With a thought, Li Chang'an retrieved a jade scroll from within. A legacy for a Tier 1, low-grade Feng Shui technique. This Feng Shui technique was incredibly esoteric, and its difficulty was on par with talisman painting. Within the legacy, there were over 100 entry-level books alone, such as the /burial scripture / dragon seeking technique / and geomancy treasure manual /. I have the spare energy to learn another set of skills now, but I think I'll pass on this Feng Shui technique, Li Chang'an mused. He had no intention of learning the Feng Shui technique. To make money with these skills, one would have to travel around constantly. What Li Chang'an wanted was a craft that would let him earn money from the comfort of his home. I'll hold on to it for now, maybe I'll get interested someday. Li Chang'an put away the Feng Shui technique legacy and continued to inspect the other items in the storage pouch. Before long, his eyes lit up as he took out a jade disc. It's a small spirit gathering disc. A look of delight appeared on Li Chang'an's face. This small spirit gathering disc was the masterpiece of an array master. It involved inscribing a small spirit gathering array onto a magic disc, turning it into a portable array. The difficulty of inscribing it was immense. At the very least, a Tier 1 top-grade array master was needed to create one. At the 100 Treasures Pavilion, a small spirit gathering disc like this sold for over 500 spirit stones. It was expensive, but completely worth it. All one had to do was embed a single spirit stone into the magic disc every 10 days to keep the array running. The heaven and earth spiritual chi gathered by the array would allow a cultivator's cultivation speed to far exceed its previous rate. Those two brothers were really good people. They delivered whatever I was missing right to me. Li Chang'an silently thanked the two of them in his heart. At the same time, he couldn't help but wonder. Those two were just assistants, and they were this loaded. How rich must the other two middle stage of chi refining tribulation cultivators be? It had to be said, being a tribulation cultivator was indeed very profitable. Every success made you that much richer. However, just one failure could cost you everything. It's better to just stick to talisman painting. In the following months, the outside world was in turmoil. News about the secret realm flew everywhere, with all sorts of rumors emerging one after another. The conflict between the three great Foundation establishment clans also intensified, and each clan lost many of its disciples. But Li Chang'an remained true to his original intentions, focusing on his cultivation. With the help of the small spirit gathering disc, his cultivation speed was far greater than before. Before he knew it, his cultivation was already approaching the peak of third-layer chi refining. This is much faster than I expected. Li Chang'an was very satisfied. With the support of ample resources, the path of cultivation was indeed much smoother. Thankfully, the three great Foundation establishment clans have been fighting over the secret realm, so the Chang'an marketplace has remained relatively peaceful and hasn't been affected too much. A stable place to cultivate was another reason Li Chang'an could progress so quickly. During this time, Su Fugui often came to Li Chang'an to buy talismans. He would also talk about what he had seen and heard in the secret realm. He had entered the secret realm months ago and hadn't taken too many risks, always acting cautiously and unearthing various small opportunities. Brother Li, a few days ago I found a bottle of elixir pills. Although most of the medicinal efficacy has faded, it's still quite valuable. Sufugui said gleefully. Of course, opportunity always came hand in hand with crisis. Thanks to the sets of talismans Li Chang'an had specially prepared for him, he had survived several crises. Brother Li, some places in the secret realm are so dangerous and terrifying. It's scary just thinking back on it now. Oh, what kind of places? Li Chang'an asked curiously. Sufugui immediately began to recount his experiences. A few days ago, he had been passing through a valley in the secret realm. The valley was filled with people who had been turned to charcoal. They all had terrified expressions, staring at the sky as if they had seen something utterly horrifying before they died. Just a single glance made him feel an oppressive dread, as if something terrible was about to befall him. So he immediately fled as far away as he could. Good thing I ran, Sufugui said, his face pale with lingering fear. Later, I heard that some people went treasure hunting in that valley, but they all ended up as charcoal too. Furthermore, there were many other strange and bizarre areas in the secret realm. Some places were shrouded in a thick fog, and no one who entered ever came out. Other places often echoed with earth-shattering battle cries, but when you got closer, there was nothing there. In short, you had to be extremely cautious when acting in the secret realm. Even so, the crowd's enthusiasm for the secret realm had not diminished. In fact, it had only grown more fervent. Every day, a large number of cultivators entered the secret realm for treasure hunting. And quite a few treasures were brought out as well. Brother Li, a lot of scammers have appeared in the marketplace recently. You have to be careful not to get cheated. At this point, Sufugui offered a few words of warning. Some of those treasures from the secret realm were real, and some were fake. The easiest things to fake are the so-called secret realm treasure chests. In the secret realm, there are some special boxes, pottery jars, bronze cauldrons, and other such containers. They were probably used by ancient cultivators to store things. They've never been opened and are protected by restrictions from ancient times. As long as the restriction isn't removed, no one knows what's actually inside. There could be a priceless treasure, or it could be completely empty. Because of this, many loose cultivators who find these things don't open them. Instead, they bring them to the marketplace to sell, letting the buyer judge for themselves. It's true that some people have opened them to find valuable treasures, but many more have lost out. This type of transaction has become very popular in the marketplace recently. And so, all sorts of scammers have appeared. A lot of the secret realm treasure chests are fakes. Scammers use techniques to make them look old and then forge counterfeit restrictions on them. Sufugui was a bit annoyed. He had been scammed himself. More than once, in fact. Li Chang'an, however, was rather interested in this kind of trade. Sounds a bit like the blind boxes from my previous life, he thought to himself. Blind boxes passed down from ancient times. Over the next few days, Li Chang'an went to the trade district every day to see if there were any opportunities to find a hidden gem. On the 5th day, at midnight that night, a fortunate divination appeared for the first time in a long while. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, fortunate. You go to the trade district for some treasure hunting, buy a spirit beast statue, and unexpectedly discover a spirit beast bag inside it. A spirit beast bag. Li Chang'an smiled and reached out to pat Dawang on the head. With a spirit beast bag, it would be very convenient to carry Dawang around. If he encountered danger, he could just release Dawang and catch his opponent completely off guard. The next day, early in the morning, Li Chang'an arrived at the marketplace and was immediately inundated by the sounds of various vendors hawking their wares. A spirit beast statue should be pretty conspicuous. He weaved through the bustling crowd, his gaze sweeping over one stall after another. Before long, he locked onto a relatively large stall. The stall owner's aura was average. He was a cultivator at the early stage of chi refining. On top of the stall, there were over 100 miscellaneous items, almost all of them from the secret realm. Among them was a spirit beast statue, placed right in the center of the stall. Chapter 19, Liu Yue's surprise. How much for this? Li Chang'an walked up to the stall and casually picked up a badly damaged magical artifact. The stall owner glanced over. 5 spirit stones. Hearing this, Li Chang'an thought for a moment before putting the magical artifact down. He then asked about a few other items. The stall owner was quite patient. After all, it wasn't easy to save up spirit stones, and most cultivators just asked questions without buying anything. He was used to it. Just then, a familiar voice called out from nearby. "Hey, Taoist Li, are you here for some treasure hunting too?" Liu Yue approached, her figure graceful and a bright smile on her pretty face. Li Chang'an clasped his hands in greeting. "Taoist Liu, I'm just browsing." "Me too." Liu Yue chuckled softly. After that exchange between fellow Taoists, although Li Chang'an hadn't gone back, he still occasionally ran into Liu Yue and the others at the marketplace. Over time, they had become quite familiar with each other. After a brief chat, Li Chang'an went back to pretending to browse, asking the prices of a few more items as if he couldn't make up his mind. Finally, his gaze shifted, and he pointed to the spirit beast statue at the center of the stall. "How much for this one?" "This thing." The stall owner hesitated for a moment, not giving a price right away. He reached out and tapped the statue firmly. The sound wasn't muffled. On the contrary, it was somewhat hollow. "This statue is hollow and protected by a restriction. I suspect there's a treasure sealed inside." "Oh, so this is like a secret realm treasure chest." Liu Yue smiled, her interest seemingly piqued. The stall owner nodded slightly. "You could say that. I've never opened it myself. Taoist, feel free to inspect it." With that, he picked up the statue. He handed it to Li Chang'an. Li Chang'an took it. It felt a little heavy in his hands. The restriction on the statue's surface carried an aura of decay and age, and there were no signs it had ever been opened. Of course, some scammers could fake that aura of decay. But Li Chang'an had his divination to guide him, so he wasn't worried. "Just give me a price, I'll take it." "All right." The stall owner hesitated for a moment, just about to speak. Just then, a strange fluctuation of spiritual power suddenly emanated from another stall nearby, drawing the attention of the group. A young cultivator was standing in front of that stall. He had just bought an unopened bronze cauldron and was eagerly opening it, hoping to find a treasure sealed inside. But suddenly, the bronze cauldron began to tremble violently. Then it abruptly shattered. Boom! The young cultivator had no time to dodge and was instantly blown to a bloody pulp. Countless sharp, deadly glints of cold light shot out in all directions. "Shield!" Li Chang'an's reflexes were lightning fast. In an instant, he threw out more than 10 high-quality spirit shield talismans. The talismans flashed, and spiritual chi solidified into shields. In total, more than 10 layers of shields stacked one in front of the other. They firmly protected him, and the area immediately around him. A moment later, the sound of wailing filled the air. Dozens of people hadn't reacted in time, and were struck by fragments of the bronze cauldron. That was close. The stall owner was terrified. He hadn't been able to react either. Fortunately, Li Chang'an's talismans had protected him as well. Otherwise, even if he hadn't died, he would have been severely injured. "Thank you, Taoist," he said immediately, his face full of gratitude. Li Chang'an waved his hand dismissively. "It's nothing." Nearby, Liu Yue was also stunned. What shocked her wasn't just Li Chang'an's reaction speed, but also the dozen or so high-quality talismans shimmering before them. "Taoist Li Yu, you can already create high-quality talismans." Her lovely mouth fell slightly open, and a trace of disbelief flashed in her almond-shaped eyes. You have to understand, she had always considered herself a genius. It had taken her only 3 years to successfully create a high-quality talisman. But how long had Li Chang'an been practicing talisman painting? It seemed like it had only been a little over a year. Li Chang'an's expression remained unchanged as he said in a serious voice, "I concealed some things from you before, Taoist Liu. The truth is, I am not a newcomer to the talisman Tao. I have been practicing talisman painting for many years, but I've always kept it quiet. It was only recently that I got lucky and managed to create a high-quality talisman." "Many years." Hearing this, Liu Yue felt a little more at ease. That made more sense. After all, creating a high-quality talisman in just over a year was simply too astonishing, and there was nothing wrong with Li Chang'an's explanation either. He was naturally low-key, never one to show off. It was perfectly normal for someone like him to be hiding his mastery of high-quality talisman art. Taoist Li, you really hide your talents well. You're clearly an old hand at being a talisman master, yet you pretended to be a novice in front of me. Liu Yue shot him a look, feigning annoyance. Whether intentionally or not, she subtly moved a little closer, the sense of distance she had previously maintained now gone. Unperturbed, Li Chang'an looked toward the site of the explosion. The bronze cauldron was completely shattered. There was nothing left. This kind of thing has happened before. They're ancient relics, after all. They might contain a great opportunity or they might contain danger. No one can say for sure. The stall owner explained. It wasn't the first time he'd seen something like this, but it was the first time he'd been so close to it. Before long, the Zheng family patrol team arrived, cleaned up the scene, and sent the injured away. Cultivators were highly resilient. Soon, the marketplace returned to its previous bustling state. Holding the statue, Li Chang'an asked the stall owner, Taoist, you still haven't told me the price of this statue. What's there to talk about prices for? The stall owner shook his head and said, Taoist, you saved my life. A life is worth far more than this statue. Just take it. If there's anything else on the stall you fancy, take it as well. Very well. Li Chang'an didn't refuse. Spirit stones were precious, and it was best to save them when he could. He immediately placed the statue into his storage pouch. The purpose of this trip to the marketplace has been achieved. He was just about to head back. Suddenly Liu Yue spoke, her tone especially gentle. Taoist Li, since we can both create high-quality talismans, we should find some time to sit and discuss the Tao to have an exchange. What do you think? She stood very close, and a delicate fragrance drifted to his nose. I've been a bit busy lately. Let's talk about it some other time. Li Chang'an was very polite but hurried away, giving her no chance to speak again. Watching his retreating figure, Liu Yue bit her lip, slightly annoyed. This Li Chang'an is so dense. I invited him personally, and he actually turned me down. A few days later, a meeting for fellow Taoists was held as scheduled. As always, the attendees sometimes discussed their skills and sometimes flattered their elders. During the gathering, Liu Yue brought up what had happened at the marketplace. Taoist Liu, can that Li Chang'an really create high-quality talismans now? That's right. Upon learning this, everyone was astonished. Luo Kun's brow furrowed slightly, a hint of displeasure on his face. Someone quickly caught on. So what? He can't compare to Elder Luo in the end. Elder Luo was willing to guide him, but he didn't even show up. He wasted Elder Luo's good intentions. Several low-grade talisman masters chimed in, with Luo Kun's name in every other sentence. The stream of compliments was music to Luo Kun's ears. As for Li Chang'an, he didn't have a middle-grade lineage after all. He was only temporarily one step ahead and wasn't worth fawning over. The low-grade talisman masters present were all confident that they, too, would one day be able to create high-quality talismans. Chapter 20, Marrying into the Zheng family. Inside his room, Li Chang'an wiped away the restriction on the stone statue's surface. Then with a palm strike he shattered it. A small, exquisite pouch appeared amidst the pile of rubble. This is a spirit beast bag. Li Chang'an picked up the bag and examined it carefully, his face immediately showing surprise. The space inside the bag was much larger than he had anticipated. It was nearly 10 measures of space. After all, each of the few storage pouches he had acquired only held a single measure of space. It's quite spacious. Daowang shouldn't feel too cramped in here. Of course, on most days, Daowang would still be active underground, diligently digging his tunnels. Li Chang'an would only put him in the spirit beast bag to carry along when he went out. After testing the spirit beast bag's functions, Li Chang'an fell into thought. The struggle between the three major families hasn't affected the marketplace yet, but it's hard to say what will happen in the future. I need to stock up on more resources as soon as possible. He had a large stock of high-quality talismans on hand. It hadn't been a good time to sell them before, but now seemed about right. That evening, Li Chang'an went to the 100 Treasures Pavilion. He took out a high-quality spirit shield talisman and handed it to Manager Qian, who was behind the counter. Manager Qian, could you see how much this talisman is worth? All right, let me see. Manager Qian's expression was placid. He didn't seem to care much. After all, Li Chang'an had come in many times before. And every time, he he was only selling the most ordinary low-grade talismans. However, this time, the moment he took the talisman, a flash of surprise crossed his eyes. Hello? Manager Xianxia raised an eyebrow. He carefully sensed it for a moment, then used one of the shop's instruments to measure it. A high-quality talisman. Manager Xianxia looked at Li Chang'an in astonishment. Taoist Li, your talisman art has improved so quickly. It was just a stroke of luck. Li Chang'an wore a smile, his tone extremely modest. He repeated the same story he had told Liu Yue, explaining that he had been practicing talisman painting for many years, but had never been able to produce a high-quality talisman. That was why he had purchased that middle-grade talisman brush a few days ago. Thanks to the help of that middle-grade talisman brush, I finally managed to create a high-quality talisman. Li Chang'an sighed with emotion, making it seem as if it had been quite an ordeal. Manager Xianxia smiled and offered his congratulations. In any case, Taoist Li has finally distinguished himself from the ranks of low-grade talisman masters. Being able to craft a high-quality talisman naturally placed one's status a cut above that of an ordinary low-grade talisman master. After that, the two of them chatted and laughed for a bit longer. Manager Xianxia's attitude was clearly much warmer than before. Just then, a woman's voice suddenly called out from outside the door. What's all the happy news? The voice was exceedingly pleasant, like a gentle mountain breeze, soft and moving as it drifted to Li Chang'an's ears. Hearing the voice, he knew who it was. Li Chang'an immediately turned, cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, eldest miss." The newcomer was none other than the eldest miss of the Zheng family. Zheng Qingqing. Dressed in a long, turquoise-green dress, she entered the 100 Treasures Pavilion with a graceful bearing. Taoist Li, we meet again. She glanced at Li Chang'an, her expression warm and cheerful. I've said it twice now, there's no need to be so formal. We are both seekers of the Tao, so we can just address each other as fellow Taoists. Yes. Li Chang'an maintained a respectful expression. Behind the counter, Manager Xianxia, beaming, handed over a dusty-looking ledger. Eldest miss, this month's accounts are all here. Good, thank you for your trouble, Manager Xianxia. Zheng Qingqing nodded slightly and took the ledger. This scene left Li Chang'an a little surprised. The 100 Treasures Pavilion is actually owned by the Zheng family. Manager Xianxia seemed to have read his mind and immediately cleared up his confusion. Taoist Li, my cultivation partner is from the Zheng family, so I'm considered a son-in-law of the family. As he spoke, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Over the years, the 100 Treasures Pavilion has weathered many storms. Without the Zheng family's support, it would have collapsed long ago. I see. Li Chang'an understood. It was impossible for the 100 Treasures Pavilion to have grown to this scale without a powerful backer. In Qinghe Marketplace, the Zheng family was the best patron one could have. Then, Manager Xianxia said to Zheng Qingqing, eldest miss, Taoist Li and I were happy just now because his talisman art has improved. It's worth celebrating. Oh, Taoist Li, you can create high-quality talismans now. Zheng Qingqing looked at Li Chang'an, a hint of surprise on her pretty face. A breakthrough so soon, could he be a genius? Li Chang'an felt helpless. He had no choice but to repeat the same story once again. After hearing him out, Zheng Qingqing nodded slightly. So that's how it is. He's been practicing talisman painting for many years. Zheng Qingqing's thoughts shifted, and she suddenly recalled the time Li Chang'an had come to her for help. She couldn't help but smile. Taoist Li, it's good to be reserved, but you shouldn't hide your talents too deeply. If you had revealed your identity as a talisman master earlier, Zheng Jinbao naturally wouldn't have dared to assign you to the mines. Indeed. Li Chang'an sighed, seeming to agree wholeheartedly with her words. At that moment, Zheng Qingqing's mind drifted to something else. Her gaze shifted as she carefully looked Li Chang'an up and down. It had to be said, Li Chang'an was quite handsome. He had refined features and a gentle disposition, like a young, well-read scholar. Furthermore, being able to create high-quality talismans already made him a rare talent. Taoist Li, I was wondering, is there anyone you have your heart set on? Zheng Qingqing asked suddenly. Li Chang'an was taken aback. Why is she asking this? No. He shook his head, a few strange thoughts rising in his mind. Zheng Qingqing's eyes crinkled with a smile as she explained. My Zhang family has many unmarried young women, all of whom are well-mannered, sensible, and understanding. This, Li Chang'an was utterly stunned, not knowing what to say. Is she trying to recruit me as a live-in son-in-law? Eldest miss, my heart is set on cultivation right now. I truly have no other aspirations. He hastily refused. I just managed to get away from the Zhang family. How could I go back so easily? He wouldn't agree even in times of peace. Let alone now. The Zhang family was in constant conflict with the other two great foundation establishment clans, and their disciples were suffering heavy casualties. Taoist Li, don't be so quick to refuse. The Zhang family wouldn't place too many restrictions on you, Zhang Qingqing said in a gentle tone. Beside them, Manager Qian also spoke up. Taoist Li, the path of a loose cultivator is fraught with hardship. Don't you want a patron to rely on? His expression was sincere as he tried to persuade Li Chang'an. Within a foundation establishment clan, the cultivation immortality resources you can access are far beyond your imagination. To say nothing of other things, just consider the talismanic inheritance. Although the Zhang family was an alchemy family, that didn't mean they lacked other cultivation immortality techniques. In fact, the Zhang family had collected a great number of cultivation immortality techniques. While those skills had not reached Tier 2, most of them were at the Tier 1 top grade. For example, their talismanic inheritance. Taoist Li, as long as you join the Zhang family and perform well in the Tao of Talismans, you won't have to worry about obtaining a subsequent talismanic inheritance at all. It had to be said. For an ordinary low-grade talisman master, these words were indeed extremely tempting. After all, most of them couldn't even obtain a Tier 1 middle-grade talismanic inheritance, let alone a top-grade inheritance. But Li Chang'an's mind was made up. Nothing they said could sway him. Manager Qian, there's no need to persuade me further. Chapter 21, Breakthrough. Li Chang'an was different from other talisman masters. The path of talismans and seals was merely one of his methods for earning cultivation resources. What he truly relied on was the daily refreshing divination. Even without his talismanic inheritance, he might still obtain other inheritances in the future. In short, he didn't need to join the Zhang family to acquire all sorts of resources. Marrying into the Zhang family certainly has its benefits, but the drawbacks are greater. Li Chang'an complained inwardly, not voicing his thoughts. After a moment, seeing his firm attitude, Manager Qian stopped trying to persuade him. Zhang Qingqing didn't say much either, only asking Li Chang'an to consider it further. Taoist Li, if you make up your mind, you can come find me at any time. Her eyes were bright and alluring, and her attitude remained gentle. Li Chang'an nodded. Thank you for your kind offer, young lady. Not long after, Li Chang'an took his leave. He left the 100 Treasures Pavilion with the spirit stones he had earned from selling talismans. After he left, Manager Qian spoke with a smile. That kid's skills just had a breakthrough, so he's full of himself right now. It's normal for someone with such high spirits to refuse. Don't take it to heart, young lady. Of course I won't. Zhang Qingqing chuckled, unconcerned. Manager Qian added, young lady, give it some time. Once his talisman art hits a dead end and he has nowhere else to turn, he'll definitely come knocking. He was very confident about this. After all, he had experienced such a journey himself. When he was young, he was always full of fighting spirit, thinking he could smash through all obstacles with his own 2 fists. Only after taking a few beatings from life would he give up on that unrealistic fantasy. Young lady, are you planning to introduce him to a Zhang family's young lady with an inferior spirit root? Manager Qian inquired. Li Chang'an wasn't an ordinary cultivator, after all. It was impossible to introduce him to a mortal woman of the clan. Zhang Qingqing shook her head gently. An inferior spirit root isn't good enough. Let's go with a low-grade spirit root. Hearing this, Manager Qian was a little surprised. It seemed Li Chang'an's value in Zhang Qingqing's eyes was even higher than he had guessed. For the next few months, everything continued as usual. No matter how the outside world changed, Li Chang'an continued to cultivate in peace. Before he knew it, a breakthrough was imminent. Peak of the 3rd layer of qi refining. Li Chang'an slowly exhaled. He was separated from the qi refining 4th layer by only the thinnest of barriers. For the next 3 days, he didn't engage in talisman painting, nor did he pay any attention to the outside world. Instead, he bathed, burned incense, and worked to attain a state of calm heart and peaceful mind, pushing his own condition toward perfection. The transition from the third to the fourth layer of qi refining is the shift from the early stage to the middle stage. It's a significant threshold, and I can't be careless, no matter how confident I feel. This breakthrough was especially important. If he succeeded, he would no longer be at the very bottom of the cultivation realm. One morning, as the sun rose in the east, Chang'an sat cross-legged with his eyes slightly closed. The small spirit gathering disc was placed before him. A large number of crushed spirit stones were scattered around the room. For a moment, the spiritual qi concentration in the room had reached an astonishing level. Chang'an was unhurried and calm, his mind steady as he circulated his cultivation technique. Countless streams of spiritual power were drawn into his body, surging through his meridians like mighty rivers before finally converging in his dantian. Time itself seemed to slow down at this moment. An unknown amount of time passed. Finally, boom! Chang'an's entire body trembled. The barrier shattered completely, dissipating into nothingness. At that moment, his aura began to surge, and his cultivation rose steadily. His limbs, bones, and internal organs all underwent a drastic transformation, every inch of his body growing stronger than before. When it was all over, Chang'an opened his eyes, a sharp glint flashing within them. Qi refining fourth layer. He had finally broken through. He let out a long breath, his heart filled with joy. From this day forward, he had left the ranks of the lowest-level cultivators, taking a solid step upward. The fourth to sixth layers of qi refining were all considered the middle stage of qi refining. A cultivation at this level was quite impressive. In some of the smaller qi refining families, he could even become an elder. A moment later, Chang'an calmed himself and gave himself a warning. It's only the qi refining fourth layer. I can't get arrogant. After all, there were still 2 middle-stage qi refining tribulation cultivators watching him. He still had to be cautious. I should continue to show a cultivation of the third layer of qi refining to the outside world. I'll break through again after some time. Chang'an made his decision. A few days later, he focused on consolidating his cultivation, ensuring there were no hidden dangers from his breakthrough. After that, he took out his talisman paper and talisman brush. With a cultivation at the qi refining fourth layer, drawing a tier 1 middle-grade talisman should be much easier than before. Chang'an's expression was calm as he held the talisman brush and began to draw a golden saber talisman. Just as he expected, the talisman painting process was exceptionally smooth this time, without the slightest feeling of strain. He didn't need to consume any elixir pills, and easily finished drawing the golden saber talisman. Not bad. Chang'an put away the golden saber talisman and continued to try other talismans. Each one was easy. The process was as smooth as flowing water, completed in a single stroke. He didn't make a single mistake. After a little more time, I can start trying to draw high-quality middle-grade talismans. A smile appeared on Chang'an's face. He was very satisfied. A few more days passed. Sufugui suddenly came looking for him. "Brother Li, something terrible has happened." His tone was anxious, and his face was full of unease. Chang'an's expression was mild, and his voice was calm. "Don't rush, speak slowly. What happened?" "The Zhang family's foundation establishment ancestor is dead." "Hello?" Chang'an was stunned, finding it unbelievable. A foundation establishment ancestor was the symbol of invincibility in this region. One must understand, a foundation establishment cultivator has a lifespan of 240 years. Even the older of the Zhang family's 2 foundation establishment ancestors still had several decades of life left. It was impossible for him to have died of old age. "Explain the details. What exactly is the situation?" Chang'an's expression grew serious, and his tone became solemn. Sufugui swallowed and began to explain. "Not long ago, a new dangerous area appeared in the secret realm. That area is filled with a large number of damaged arrays, and triggering one means risking death. But although that area was dangerous, it held a great number of treasures. In the already explored parts, Even damaged Tier 2 treasures have appeared, tempting even Foundation establishment cultivators. The Zhang family's middle stage of Foundation establishment ancestor set out to explore the depths of that area. But not long after, an earth-shattering explosion was heard from the depths of the region. And then, a rumor started to spread. The Zhang family's ancestor died inside, and they couldn't even retrieve his body. Just a rumor. No one saw the Zhang family's ancestor die with their own eyes. Li Chang'an frowned slightly, questioning him carefully. Su Fugui nodded. Yes, Brother Li, but the news has already spread. Everyone in the marketplace is talking about it, and the Zhang family hasn't done anything to stop it. The Zhang family hasn't come out to refute the rumor. What does that mean? Could it be that the ancestor really died? At this thought, Li Chang'an's mood couldn't help but turn heavy. In the past, the Zhang family was able to contend with the other two major families because they had two Foundation establishment cultivators. If one of them really died, and it was the strongest one, the middle stage of Foundation establishment ancestor, then the situation was very bad. The Zhang family, with only one Foundation establishment ancestor left, will be in a much more difficult position. Li Chang'an felt a faint sense of unease. The peace in the marketplace probably wouldn't last much longer. Chapter 22, Surging Undercurrents. The balance could only be maintained with an equal number of Foundation establishment cultivators on both sides. Now that balance had been broken. The Cao and Wu families would most likely take this opportunity to force the Zhang family to concede its interests in the marketplace. But is that middle stage of Foundation establishment ancestor from the Zhang family really dead? Li Chang'an pondered. He was worried that the peace of the marketplace would be shattered. But Su Fugui was worried about something else. Brother Li, if the Zhang family starts fighting with the other two great families, will they forcibly conscript me? His face was pale with anxiety. After all, the spirit contract between him and the Zhang family was still in effect. If the situation deteriorated rapidly and the Zhang family suffered too many casualties, they would very likely conscript loose cultivators like him, who had signed spirit contracts, to the front lines. With Su Fugui's chi refining third-layer cultivation, he would be pure cannon fodder on the front lines, with an extremely low chance of survival. Don't panic, it hasn't reached that point yet, Li Chang'an said calmly. Of course, Su Fugui wasn't the only one feeling anxious. Before long, Chu Danyu held a gathering. Many people attended, nearly all of whom were people who, like them, had come to the marketplace after failing to get into an immortal sect. Although they weren't from the same hometown, they had been friends for many years. Now, every single one of them was in a panic. What should we do now? Everyone, why don't we just run for it? Breaking a spirit contract doesn't mean certain death. I know a senior who has a way to resist the backlash from the spirit contract. Everyone started talking at once, and chaos erupted. Chu Danyu had some prestige among the group, so he quickly spoke up to try and calm them down. However, he was deeply uneasy himself. This was the helplessness of a low-level cultivator. Powerless to change anything, they could only drift with the tide, hoping for a fleeting moment of peace. The scene made Li Chang'an feel a bit wistful. Wasn't he the same? In this life I must strive to climb higher, step by step, all the way to the top. As long as I'm strong enough, no matter how the world changes, I will remain unmoved. Li Chang'an's resolve to seek the Tao grew even firmer. Afterward, he went to visit the beast master, Wang Hu. This senior had a wider network and was better informed than he was. This whole affair is a bit strange. Someone must be fanning the flames from the shadows, trying to muddy the waters and throw the entire marketplace into chaos, Wang Hu said with a frown. A Foundation establishment ancestor's strength is immense, far beyond what a chi-refining cultivator can compare to. They don't die so easily. Thank you for telling me, senior. Hearing this, a suspicion began to form in Li Chang'an's mind. Soon he rose to take his leave. He then made another trip to the 100 Treasures Pavilion to ask Manager Qian. Manager Qian was, after all, the son-in-law of the Zhang family, so he knew more. But he didn't reveal much, only telling Li Chang'an to go home and wait quietly. Taoist Li, in a few more days you'll know. Thank you, Manager Qian. Hearing this, Li Chang'an was mostly relieved. He had more or less guessed the intentions of the Zhang family and the Cao and Wu families. Now all he had to do was wait quietly. A few days later, just as the marketplace descended further into chaos, a powerful aura suddenly erupted from its center. Everyone felt an immense, oppressive pressure. A foundation establishment ancestor. Many people looked toward the very center of the marketplace, their faces filled with shock. The foundation establishment ancestor of the Zheng family had finally appeared. And it was the very same middle stage of foundation establishment ancestor who was rumored to have fallen. He was seen with a ruddy complexion, full of essence, qi, and spirit, and his aura was incomparably tyrannical. There wasn't even the slightest sign of injury. "Greetings, Senior." The nearby loose cultivators all bowed, not daring to show the slightest disrespect. Just as everyone was stunned by the foundation establishment aura, squads of Zheng family cultivators suddenly appeared. They headed straight for various areas of the marketplace, striking with lightning speed and apprehending many other cultivators on the spot. "Why are you arresting me? Seniors, have you made a mistake? I'm just here to do business. I have a wife and children at home." Some looked terrified and begged for mercy. Others resisted with all their might, only to be struck down on the spot, their blood splattering for several feet. The thick scent of blood gradually spread throughout the King marketplace. After it was all over, the Zheng family posted a notice stating that all those arrested and killed today had been colluding with the other two great families to disrupt the marketplace's order. The truth was more or less as Li Chang'an had guessed. The other two great families had secretly spread rumors, wanting to throw the King marketplace into chaos. After all, this marketplace was the Zheng family's cash cow. But the Zheng family hadn't immediately refuted the rumors. Instead, they took the opportunity to root out the spies the two families had planted in the marketplace and eliminate them all in one fell swoop. Upon hearing this news, Su Fugui and the others were immensely relieved. "This is great. The Zheng family's foundation establishment ancestor is fine." The stronger the Zheng family was, the safer they were. Li Chang'an was lost in thought. His gaze flickered as he glanced toward the center of the marketplace. Is that foundation establishment ancestor truly fine? Although this incident hadn't caused the Zheng family any major losses, it was obvious that many people had lost confidence in them. The atmosphere in the King marketplace also grew a bit more subdued. However, that evening, a piece of news suddenly spread. The Zheng family is holding an auction. This auction will not only have all sorts of rare treasures, but also inheritances of cultivation immortality techniques, as well as auxiliary medicines for the foundation establishment pill. As soon as this news broke, the atmosphere in the marketplace became explosive once more. Everyone seemed to forget what had happened over the past few days, and they all began to discuss the auction. Normally, the items up for auction would be kept secret, but this time, the Zheng family had actually revealed all the items. Soon, Li Chang'an had a list of the auction items in his hands. His gaze swept over the contents of the list. He couldn't help but be secretly amazed. There are so many good things. There were over 10 types of tier 1 low-grade skill inheritances alone. Beast taming, spirit plant cultivation, goo insect raising, mechanical techniques, and so on. In addition, there were 3 types of tier 1 middle-grade skill inheritances. These skill inheritances alone were enough to drive countless loose cultivators into a frenzy. Not to mention the large number of treasures and several kinds of auxiliary medicines for the foundation establishment pill. Foundation establishment pill. Li Chang'an pondered for a moment. He was already at the middle stage of qi refining. It was time for him to start thinking about foundation establishment. He had to start preparing as soon as possible. But this auction will be crowded with all sorts of people. It's not a good idea to stand out. Li Chang'an shook his head slightly, not planning to compete for anything. He would wait a while longer. If his cultivation was a bit stronger, or if he had a clever magic for altering his aura, he could make a move at this kind of auction. That night, just after midnight, a golden light appeared before Li Chang'an's eyes. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination auspicious. You attend the auction and buy a broken puppet that seems worthless, but you discover a tier 1 top-grade puppetry technique inheritance inside it. Huh? Li Chang'an was stunned, slightly surprised. I can actually find a hidden gem at the auction. Logically speaking, all the auction items should have been carefully inspected by the Zheng family. He hadn't thought it was possible to find any hidden gems. The appearance of this divination was truly a pleasant surprise. Chapter 23, Auction. Puppetry technique is another one of those skills that lets you make money from home. Joy spread across Li Chang'an's face. Among the 100 skills of cultivation immortality, puppetry technique was considered one of the most prominent. When cultivators explored ancient ruins or the cave residences of their predecessors, they would inevitably use puppets to scout ahead. In a fight, an extra puppet could significantly increase one's chances of victory. Good puppets are never hard to sell. Li Chang'an's eyes lit up as he stared at the results of the divination. What truly delighted him was the tier of this puppetry technique inheritance. Tier 1 top grade. The talismanic inheritance he currently possessed was only Tier 1 middle grade. Other than marrying into the Zheng family, he had yet to find another way to obtain a top-grade talismanic inheritance. I'll soon be able to craft high-quality middle-grade talismans. Once I do, my talisman-making skills will have reached their limit for the time being. Li Chang'an mused. Until I get a top-grade talismanic inheritance, this is the perfect time to learn puppetry technique. Besides, I have plenty of energy right now. The reason I didn't learn the Feng Shui technique before was because its tier was too low, and it didn't align with my philosophy on cultivation. The next day, early in the morning, the marketplace was already buzzing with excitement. Nearly everyone was discussing the upcoming auction. At noon, the auction officially began. The auction was hosted by an old man with a kindly expression. Esteemed friends, our first auction item is a cloud-breaking pill. Instantly, the breathing of many cultivators in the audience quickened. Countless gazes converged on the pill bottle. The cloud-breaking pill was a Tier 1 top-grade elixir made from incredibly precious ingredients. It had only one effect, to aid in a realm breakthrough. The transition from the 6th to the 7th layer of qi refining was the dividing line between the middle and late stages of qi refining. It was an extremely difficult threshold to cross, and many cultivators found themselves stuck at this bottleneck for their entire lives, dying without ever managing a realm breakthrough. The cloud-breaking pill, however, could significantly reduce the difficulty of this realm breakthrough. And it came with very few side effects. This cloud-breaking pill was crafted by our Zheng family's own Tier 2 alchemist. It is a high-quality specimen among cloud-breaking pills. The starting bid is 300 spirit stones. Each increment must be no less than 10. The words had barely left his lips. Someone immediately called out a price of 350. But soon after, another person shouted 400. Bids came in one after another, each higher than the last, and the atmosphere in the auction hall grew increasingly fervent. Li Chang'an sat silently in a corner, saying nothing. I shouldn't have any use for a realm-breaking elixir. He had heard that it was best not to use elixir pills to break through the bottleneck between the 6th and 7th layers of qi refining. Doing so would reduce one's own potential. One might encounter problems in the future when trying to break through to foundation establishment. However, many people never dreamed of reaching foundation establishment and only sought to attain a cultivation in the late stage of qi refining. In the end, this high-quality cloud-breaking pill was sold for the high price of 950 spirit stones. Esteemed friends, the second auction item is a Tier 1 low-grade skill. A goo insect inheritance. The starting bid. Soon, one item after another was auctioned off. Not all the items were so valuable, some were of lesser worth. About half an hour later, a puppet was brought onto the stage. It's finally here. Li Chang'an's gaze sharpened as he carefully examined it. It was a humanoid puppet, pitch black from head to toe. It was unclear what material it was made from. Its surface bore the marks of many sharp and blunt weapons. Only half of its head remained, and its limbs were mangled, as if it had been through an incredibly fierce battle. The old man introduced it with a smile. This puppet was discovered by us in a secret realm. After appraisal, its tier was determined to be Tier 1 top grade. What Tier 1 top grade? Upon hearing this, the eyes of many cultivators lit up. The previously released list of auction items had only indicated a puppet was for sale, not that it was Tier 1 top grade. A puppet of this tier, if controlled properly, would be powerful enough to fight a cultivator in the late stage of qi refining. But soon someone raised a question. Senior, this puppet is so damaged. can it still exert the strength of a Tier 1 top grade? You have a good eye, young friend. The old man chuckled and began to explain in detail. If this puppet were intact, it would indeed count as Tier 1 top grade, but in its current, badly damaged state, it cannot be controlled normally. At best, it could be considered a Tier 1 low-grade puppet. However, the old man's tone shifted. Our Zheng family doesn't have any skilled puppet masters, so it's possible we've overlooked something. After all, this item was excavated from a secret realm. Who knows, it might be hiding some secret from ancient times. If any of you know a skilled puppet master, you could buy this puppet and have them take a closer look. His words were a clear hint that there might be a hidden treasure to be found. It wasn't as if such things had never happened before. Someone had once bought the fragment of a magical artifact from an ancient secret realm at a low price, only to discover that the fragment concealed a storage space filled with a large number of extremely valuable treasures. But the crowd's interest immediately flagged. Few people were willing to take such a gamble. The chances of finding such a hidden gem were simply too low. After some more introduction, the old man announced the price. This puppet has a starting price of 30 spirit stones. The minimum increment is 1 spirit stone. Among the many items up for auction, this puppet's starting price was quite low. It was most likely just there to fill out the roster of items. A few sparse bids echoed through the hall, the atmosphere lukewarm and nothing like the earlier fervor. Eventually, Chang'an joined the bidding. 57 spirit stones. The moment he spoke, a surprised gaze shot down from a private room at the very top of the auction hall. And what's he buying that for? Is he trying his luck? Xianxia was inside this very room, a hint of surprise on her pretty face. Beside her sat a young woman in a long white dress. The young woman was exquisitely beautiful, with lively eyes, and her gaze also drifted down toward Chang'an below. Sister Xianxia, is he the Chang'an you told me about? He is. Xianxia nodded slightly and asked the young woman. Linger, what do you think of him? He's rather handsome. The young woman's name was Xianxia. She was 16, petite and charming, and was Xianxia's younger cousin. She was also a cultivator and possessed a low-grade spirit root. Xianxia intended to play matchmaker for her and Chang'an. But Xianxia frowned slightly, seemingly dissatisfied. Sister Xianxia, the only thing he has going for him is his looks. His aptitude is truly average. The requirements for a partner in the cultivation realm were similar to those in the secular world, but with some slight differences. Appearance was only a secondary concern. What was truly important was one's personal aptitude and cultivation. Xianxia smiled gently and patiently tried to persuade her. Linger, Chang'an has a low-grade spirit root, and so do you. Your talents for cultivation are similar, which actually makes you very compatible. Sister Xianxia, how can you see it that way? Xianxia pouted, looking slightly aggrieved. Even though I only have a low-grade spirit root, shouldn't I at least try to find a Tao companion with a middle-grade spirit root? Chapter 24, Inheritance Acquired. A middle-grade spirit root. Xianxia looked a bit resigned. In the cultivation immortality realm, inferior spirit roots and low-grade spirit roots made up the majority. Most loose cultivators possessed one of these two types. After all, a cultivator with a middle-grade spirit root would have no problem joining a sect. With such talent, as long as they didn't lack resources, they had a high chance of reaching foundation establishment. Linger, cultivators with middle-grade spirit roots are either sect disciples or celestial prides from other noble families. They are all prideful. Xianxia continued to persuade her in a gentle voice. If you become Tao partners with a cultivator like that, you are bound to be mistreated. But a cultivator with a middle-grade spirit root has a greater chance of reaching foundation establishment. If I can marry a foundation establishment great cultivator, it would be worth it even if I'm mistreated. Xianxia lowered her gaze, still clinging to her own opinion. Hearing this, Xianxia could only sigh softly. Fine, after the auction ends you two can meet. Down below, the auction for the puppet had ended. It was ultimately won by Chang'an. He spent a total of 68 spirit stones. For a low-grade talisman master, revealing this much wealth was nothing significant. After that, the auction items that many cultivators had been anticipating appeared one after another, such as the inheritance of a Tier 1 middle-grade skill, auxiliary medicines for the Foundation establishment pill, and so on. The excitement throughout the auction hall continued to build. Chang'an made no further bids. He was somewhat tempted by a few of the auxiliary medicines for the Foundation establishment pill, but he merely watched in silence. The Foundation establishment pill was different from other elixir pills. Its pill formula was public knowledge. Almost every loose cultivator knew it. The most crucial ingredients were a Tier 2 demon core and 3 primary medicines targeting essence, qi, and the divine. Aside from those 4 ingredients, the other auxiliary medicines aren't particularly precious. I'll have chances to collect them slowly in the future. Chang'an pondered. About an hour later, the final auction item was sold. It was a vein protection pill, which could protect a cultivator from backlash in the event of a Foundation establishment failure. Although it couldn't compare to a Foundation establishment pill, it was still extremely rare and ultimately fetched the astronomical price of 2,300 spirit stones. Chang'an was secretly astonished by the price. Among the 100 skills of cultivation immortality, alchemy must be the most profitable. The Zheng family's power stemmed from their Tier 2 alchemy inheritance. They guarded this inheritance strictly. Ordinary disciples of the Zheng family were only allowed to learn the Tier 1 material. Only core disciples could access the Tier 2 teachings. As for everyone else, even cultivators who married into the Zheng family were not permitted to learn alchemy and had to choose from other inheritances. Time to go get my puppet. Chang'an stood up and, following the directions, headed for one of the auction's private rooms. In the private room, someone was already waiting for him. To Chang'an's surprise, the person was actually Zheng Qingqing. Next to Zheng Qingqing was a petite young woman in a white dress. A strange feeling stirred in Chang'an's heart. A certain possibility occurred to him, and he immediately clasped his hands in salute to Zheng Qingqing. Greetings, young miss. Taoist Li, we meet again. Zheng Qingqing offered a gentle smile. She waved a fair hand, placing the puppet before Chang'an. Taoist Li, our Zheng family's Tier 1 top-grade puppet master, has already examined this puppet. He says it's just an ordinary, incomplete puppet. Or have you perhaps noticed something special about it? Young miss overestimates me. Chang'an put on a wry smile. He shook his head and explained. I just wanted to try my luck. Who knows, maybe I'll find some kind of ancient inheritance. His words were reasonable and matched what Zheng Qingqing had been thinking. However, Zheng Qingqing knew full well that the family had just used this puppet to make up the numbers. After all, not every item in an auction can be a high-quality piece. Chang'an's spirit stones were probably wasted. She thought to herself, but did not say it out loud. Then I wish Taoist Li good luck. Thank you, young miss. Chang'an put away the puppet. He clasped his hands to take his leave and was about to go. But Zheng Qingqing stopped him and, with a smile, introduced the young woman in the white dress beside her. Taoist Li, this is my cousin Zheng Linger. I wanted you two to meet. Hearing this, Chang'an's body stiffened. He felt even more unsettled. But his expression remained unchanged as he looked at the young woman. Miss Zheng. Young Master Li. Zheng Linger gave a faint, charming smile. Regardless of her inner thoughts, her outward etiquette was impeccable. Young Master Li, I've heard your talisman art is exceptional, and that you can craft high-quality talismans at such a young age. You flatter me, Miss Zheng. Chang'an's tone was modest. He wore a smile, putting on an equally flawless performance. Regardless, this was a gesture of goodwill from Zheng Qingqing, and he couldn't afford to make the situation too awkward. Otherwise, he might offend her. And so the two of them exchanged a few words. They seemed to be getting along harmoniously. Yet both maintained a certain distance, and the atmosphere grew more and more awkward. During their conversation, Zheng Linger sensed Chang'an's own reluctance and couldn't help but feel secretly delighted. After a while, Chang'an clasped his hands to take his leave. Young Miss Zheng, I have matters to attend to at home, so I cannot stay and talk for long. Take care, young Master Li. Zheng Linger smiled and stood up to see him off. The conversation ended there. After Chang'an left, Zheng Linger smiled sweetly, her eyes curving into crescents, and said to Zheng Qingqing, Sister Qingqing, you saw that, didn't you? It's not that I'm unwilling, it's that Chang'an who's unwilling. Sigh, so be it. Zheng Qingqing glanced in the direction Chang'an had left, a flicker of regret in her eyes. Judging by the aptitude Li Chang'an had shown so far, he had a good chance of advancing to the late stage of qi refining in the future. Furthermore, he had some talent in the art of talismans. If he married into the Zheng family and received their advanced talismanic inheritance, his chances of becoming a top-grade talisman master were quite high. A late-stage qi refining cultivator and a top-grade talisman master, to an ordinary loose cultivator, a man with such prospects would be considered an excellent match. But Zheng Linger was, after all, a daughter of a noble family. She had her sights set higher. For now, the matter had to be dropped. Outside the auction house, just as Li Chang'an walked out, he saw a familiar figure. Zheng Jinbao. He too had spotted Li Chang'an, and a kind smile instantly spread across his face, as if he were looking at a beloved junior. "Ah, Chang'an, did you get anything good at the auction?" "A little something," Li Chang'an replied casually, his expression unchanged. He didn't linger. After a brief greeting, he hurried off in the direction of his residence. Behind him, Zheng Jinbao watched his retreating back, a sinister glint flashing in his eyes. That brat can already craft high-quality talismans. His status is rising with the tide, and the young miss is valuing him more and more. She even wants him to marry into the family. The higher Li Chang'an's status rose, the more uneasy Zheng Jinbao felt. If Li Chang'an really married into the Zheng family and received enough resources, his future status might even surpass his own. "I absolutely cannot let that happen." Zheng Jinbao's expression turned ugly. He somewhat regretted having offended Li Chang'an in the first place. But at this point, regret was useless. He had to find a way to settle this matter for good. Those two good-for-nothings, how have they not gotten rid of Li Chang'an after all this time? Zheng Jinbao cursed inwardly, then turned and walked off in another direction. But he didn't notice a seemingly ordinary mutt following him from a short distance behind. Chapter 25, Hope for the Spirit Beast's Advancement. In fact, Dawang had already tracked Zheng Jinbao more than once. The previous few times, it hadn't noticed anything unusual. But this time was different. Zheng Jinbao went to meet two people. The auras of those two people were identical to the auras of the two middle stage of qi refining tribulation cultivators Dawang had detected last time. So it really is Zheng Jinbao. After receiving the news, Li Chang'an wasn't surprised at all. After all, if someone hadn't been pulling the strings, why would the tribulation cultivators be so fixated on him? "Keep an eye on them and be careful yourself. Don't let them spot you," Li Chang'an instructed Dawang. Then he took out the puppet and observed it carefully. Just from the outside, it really is just an ordinary, low-value puppet. I don't know where the inheritance is hidden. The divination only showed there was an inheritance inside the puppet, but it didn't say in which part. Li Chang'an could only search for it meticulously. A moment later, he began to carefully dismantle the puppet. The puppet was already in tatters, so taking it apart was quite easy. About a quarter of an hour later, a large pile of fragmented parts now lay before Li Chang'an. He had disassembled it as thoroughly as possible, yet he still hadn't found anything that contained the inheritance. No wonder the Zheng family's puppet master couldn't see anything wrong with it. Li Chang'an pondered for a moment. In that case, I'll have to take a small risk. He picked up a piece of the puppet and gave it a forceful jolt. Crack! The part shattered on cue. Tiny fragments fell to the floor. Li Chang'an shook his head slightly, picked up another puppet part and repeated the action. As time passed, more and more parts were reduced to fine dust. After a long time, as Li Chang'an shattered another part, a dim jade scroll fell out from within. Clang, it fell to the ground. Huh? Li Chang'an's eyes lit up, and he immediately picked it up. He quickly scanned the contents of the jade scroll, and a smile instantly appeared on his face. It really is a puppetry inheritance. The inheritance was actually hidden within the materials used to make the puppet. Had anyone else bought this puppet, they most likely would have missed the inheritance inside. Thankfully, Li Chang'an had the guidance of his divination. For the next month, Li Chang'an didn't study puppetry, but instead continued to delve into his talisman art. His cultivation at the qi refining fourth layer made painting talismans much easier for him. On this day at noon, Li Chang'an smiled as he looked at the talisman he had just finished painting. The quality of this talisman surpassed that of an ordinary Tier 1 middle-grade talisman. It was clearly a high-quality one. Not bad, the quality is excellent. Li Chang'an was particularly satisfied. At this point, his talisman art had temporarily reached its limit. He didn't know when he would be able to obtain the subsequent inheritance. It's time to take a look at this puppetry technique. Li Chang'an put away his talisman paper and talisman brush and dedicated himself completely to the path of puppetry. Soon, he discovered that the path of puppetry shared some common ground with the path of talismans and seals. The reason puppets can be controlled is that the puppet master carves patterns inside them to guide magical power. This carving process was very similar to talisman painting. It was simply a matter of replacing the talisman paper with the puppet's body. Therefore, Li Chang'an learned quite quickly. He couldn't help but recall a rumor he had once heard. It is said that all techniques are interconnected, and all paths eventually converge into one. Of course, such a realm was far too profound. It was far beyond the reach of the current Li Chang'an. He shook his head, focused his mind, and continued studying. 1 month later, Li Chang'an slowly put down the Jade Scroll. He had finished learning all the content in the Jade Scroll regarding the Tier 1 low-grade puppet inheritance. For now, there's no need to learn the more advanced content. I'll first try to make a Tier 1 low-grade puppet. Li Chang'an purchased some puppet materials. For a period of time afterward, he locked himself in his room. Besides his cultivation, he focused solely on making puppets. All beginnings are difficult. On his first attempt, he failed at even carving the most basic patterns, directly causing a large piece of material to be wasted. Making a puppet is very time-consuming. It can't be done in a single stroke like talisman painting. Li Chang'an was very patient. He wasn't discouraged and continued to try again and again based on what he had learned. Before he knew it, 2 months had flown by. A large pile of discarded puppet materials had accumulated in the corner of the room. Finally, on this night, Li Chang'an successfully created his first low-grade puppet. This puppet was in the shape of a spider, not a humanoid, simply because the method for creating a humanoid was more complex. Move. With a thought from Li Chang'an, the spider puppet began to move. Its movements were smooth and agile, as if it were a real spider. Li Chang'an nodded slightly, particularly satisfied. My puppetry skills have basically reached the entry level. Next, Li Chang'an began to attempt making more complex puppets. During this time, Dahuang had been continuously tracking the 2 tribulation cultivators. During this period, the 2 of them had not returned to their stronghold outside the marketplace. Instead, they had been living inside the marketplace the whole time, in a location very close to Li Chang'an's residence. Hidden in the shadows, the 2 watched Li Chang'an at nearly every moment. They didn't know, however, that Li Chang'an was also watching them. They still haven't made a move after all this time. Li Chang'an thought for a moment and made a judgment. It seems they don't have the guts to act inside the marketplace. They can only wait for an opportunity when I leave on my own. That made sense. A Foundation establishment ancestor was stationed right in King Marketplace. Moreover, the Zheng family's patrol teams circled the marketplace day and night, searching for any suspicious individuals. This was all due to the struggle between the 3 great families. But the tribulation cultivators were affected. In recent days, quite a few tribulation cultivators had been discovered. Those who hadn't been found yet were hiding cautiously in the shadows, not daring to show their faces at all. This is good too. The longer this drags on, the more advantageous it is for me. With the help of his divination, Li Chang'an's strength was growing far faster than those 2 tribulation cultivators. In the days that followed, he would occasionally take a stroll through the trading area, collecting various puppet materials and seeing if he could find any hidden treasures along the way. 1 month later, that night just after midnight, an auspicious trigram which he hadn't seen in a long time appeared before Li Chang'an's eyes. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, Auspicious. You go treasure hunting in the trading area, buy a seemingly ordinary brown stone, and after shattering it, you unexpectedly discover an earth element pearl. An earth element pearl. Li Chang'an's brow twitched as a pleasant surprise washed over him. This earth element pearl was a precious earth element treasure. It could be used for refining an earth element magical artifact. But it had an even more widely known use, helping an earth element demon beast advance in rank. The spiritual power it contained was extremely gentle and had no side effects, making it an excellent treasure for assisting an earth element demon beast's advancement. With this pearl, Da Huang can advance from the Tier 1 middle stage to the Tier 1 late stage. Originally, according to Li Chang'an's estimates, it would have taken Da Huang several more years to advance. This unexpected joy had moved the timeline up considerably. The next morning, Li Chang'an hurried toward the marketplace's trading area. Behind him, two cold gazes were fixed intently on his back. This kid must be part turtle. He hasn't left the marketplace this whole time. He's barely even left his house. The two tribulation cultivators hid in the shadows, their hearts surging with killing intent. Due to the disappearance of the Wu Yun brothers, they had been forced to stake out Li Chang'an themselves. The months-long stakeout had made them extremely irritable, and their patience was nearly worn out. Big brother, why don't we take a risk and just attack him directly? Chapter 26, Top-Grade Talismanic Inheritance. The two tribulation cultivators were a pair of brothers. One was named Wang De, the other Wang Er. They had been tribulation cultivators for many years. In the past, it had almost always been smooth sailing, but they had never been so frustrated before. Don't be hasty. Let's wait a little longer. I refuse to believe this old turtle will stay inside the marketplace for the rest of his life. Wang De growled, gritting his teeth. Most tribulation cultivators would get a headache dealing with a cultivator like Li Chang'an. He didn't need to venture outside the marketplace. He just had to stay home, wait for an auspicious trigram to appear, and opportunities would naturally fall into his lap. This turtle-like existence might be tedious for others, but Li Chang'an reveled in it. At this moment, he had arrived at the marketplace's trading area, searching for the brown stone indicated by the divination. There are quite a lot of stones for sale in this marketplace. I wonder which one it could be. Li Chang'an's expression was as calm as ever as he walked through the bustling crowd. His gaze carefully swept over every stall. About half an hour later, he began to act, buying up the stones that caught his eye one by one. Some stones came from secret realms, some from the cave residences of predecessors, and others were said to have come from various mines. The prices varied, but most were cheap. Over the course of the entire morning, Li Chang'an bought over 30 brown stones in total, spending less than 70 spirit stones. If he could find an earth element pearl, it would be a huge profit. I've bought just about enough. Li Chang'an returned to his house with several storage pouches full of stones. He activated a sound insulation talisman. Then he got to work. He shattered the stones he had bought one by one. Crack, crack. The stones shattered one after another, sending fragments flying. When the sixth stone was shattered, a crystal-like, translucent ore fell out from within. Hello? Surprised, Li Chang'an paused his actions. Is this spirit stone mine? He picked up the ore and, sensing the dense spiritual power within, couldn't help but smile. I never would have thought this time breaking open stones would yield such a pleasant surprise. I was hoping for an earth element pearl, but instead I got this huge piece of spirit stone mine. Li Chang'an made a rough calculation. If he cut and broke down the spirit stone mine, he could get at least 50 spirit stones. He remembered. When he bought this stone, the stall owner had said it was brought out from the depths of a mine. I've heard that stone gambling is popular in some places. The owners of major mining fields set up special gambling dens to attract cultivators who want to try their luck picking stones. Did I just accidentally take part? Li Chang'an put away the spirit stone mine, his mood exceptionally good. He continued to break open the stones. This time, no more pleasant surprises appeared. When he shattered the 23rd stone, a perfectly round earth element pearl fell out. I finally found it. A corner of Li Chang'an's mouth lifted as he snatched the earth element pearl. The power contained within the pearl was just as Li Chang'an understood it to be, heavy and gentle, as if it held an entire landmass. To the side, Da Huang's eyes lit up, his tail wagged nonstop, and drool dripped from the corner of his mouth. Da Huang catch. Li Chang'an tossed it casually. Woof. Overjoyed, Da Huang leaped lightly and caught the earth element pearl in his mouth. Then he swallowed it. Before long, the aura around his body began to climb steadily, growing more and more powerful. He was about to advance. Focus on your advancement. I'll watch over you. Li Chang'an slapped out a few talismans, isolating the spiritual power fluctuations in the room from the outside world. He then took out the spirit stone mine he had found earlier. He shattered it with a single palm strike. In an instant, dense spiritual power surged out, filling the entire room. With the help of the earth element pearl, advancement shouldn't be a problem. Li Chang'an mused. After all, it was only an advancement from Tier 1 middle stage to Tier 1 late stage, not to Tier 2. For a spirit beast with a middle-grade bloodline like a yellow sand dog, advancing to the late stage wasn't difficult to begin with. Soon, a hazy pale yellow halo appeared around Da Huang's body. His fur began to fall out as new fur grew in, as if he were being completely reborn. His aura grew steadily along with it. Everything went smoothly. In less than 10 minutes, the advancement was over. Woof woof. Da Huang was filled with joy. The aura emanating from his body had already reached the Tier 1 late stage, comparable to a human race cultivator at the late stage of qi refining. Not bad. Li Chang'an smiled and patted the dog's head. Now, he himself was at the middle stage of qi refining, while his spirit beast was at Tier 1 late stage. In Qinghai Marketplace, very few people could pose a threat to him anymore. Of course, in the eyes of outsiders, he was still just a minor junior cultivator at the qi refining third layer. All right, go back to keeping an eye on those two. Li Chang'an instructed Da Huang. A Tier 1 late stage Da Huang now had enough power to deal with 2 tribulation cultivators at the middle stage of qi refining. But Li Chang'an had no plans to act just yet. First, I'll let Da Huang consolidate his realm and get used to his new strength. Then I'll find the right opportunity. Li Chang'an thought to himself. The time was not yet right to make a move. 3 months passed in a flash. During this time, Li Chang'an spent his days either cultivating or refining puppets. The puppets he refined grew increasingly complex. Finally, one evening, he successfully refined a humanoid puppet. My first spider puppet barely reached the strength of the qi refining first layer. This humanoid puppet, however, already has the strength of the qi refining third layer, which is comparable to the strength I show to the public. Li Chang'an stood before the puppet, a satisfied look on his face. This puppet he had built it according to his own body shape. After refining this puppet, his puppetry skill had basically reached the peak for a Tier 1 low-grade puppet master. Now I can learn the Tier 1 middle-grade puppet inheritance. Li Chang'an mused. However, before that, he planned to deal with the 2 tribulation cultivators first. During this period, Wang De and Wang had grown quite impatient. Zhang Jinbao had also lost his patience and had urged them on several times. But they truly didn't dare make a move in a place guarded by a Foundation establishment ancestor, so they could only endure and wait. Every day spent in the marketplace made their skin crawl. Eventually, the two began to take shifts. One of them would watch Li Chang'an, while the other went to operate outside the marketplace. These two are really cautious. No wonder they've lived so long. If Wu Yun had been even half as careful, he never would have had the idea to come to my home to kill me. Li Chang'an sat cross-legged, calming his mind and qi, quietly waiting in his room for midnight to arrive. Just after midnight, a golden light appeared before his eyes. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, Auspicious. You will move against the 2 tribulation cultivators. The process will be exceptionally smooth. You will not only obtain a large amount of cultivation resources, but also seize an opportunity that originally belonged to them, from which you will acquire a Tier 1 top-grade talismanic inheritance. An opportunity, a top-grade talismanic inheritance. Li Chang'an was overjoyed. He had been worrying that his talisman art had reached a dead end. Trying to advance his talisman art from middle grade to top grade through his own research was simply too difficult. An inheritance contained the summarized experience and methods of predecessors. A single inheritance could save him from many wrong turns and a huge amount of time. It seems their opportunity is fated to be mine. Li Chang'an was determined to obtain that inheritance. He calmed himself and began to plan meticulously. Although the divination was auspicious, he still couldn't afford to be careless. Chapter 27, Obtaining a Fortunate Opportunity. Before long, it was the dead of night. Li Chang'an's door suddenly opened. A figure in a black robe and a wide-brimmed bamboo hat emerged from the room and hurried out of the marketplace. The old coward actually came out. From the shadows, Wang who was on stakeout, jolted. A look of delight appeared in his eyes. He was even more overjoyed to see the figure leave the marketplace. Perfect, my long wait hasn't been in vain. Tonight is the night you die. Although Wang De wasn't around, Wang was still full of confidence. Once this job is done, I'll take a break. It's been a long time since I had a proper night's sleep. Watching the figure recede into the distance, he sneered inwardly, blurring into an afterimage as he gave chase. But he failed to notice that another figure was tailing him. Farther back, Li Chang'an had a serious expression, following closely with Dawang. As for the figure at the very front, it was, of course, the Tier 1 low-grade puppet he had created. The plan is going smoothly. I've successfully lured him out of the marketplace. Li Chang'an had no intention of making a move inside the marketplace. After all, there were too many prying eyes. He feared that a large commotion would attract the attention of the Foundation establishment ancestor. Before long, they were a considerable distance from the marketplace. Dawang, go. Li Chang'an's tone was decisive. Upon receiving the command, Dawang's speed surged as it shot straight toward Wang At that moment, Wang was still puzzled. How is that old coward so fast? Did he use a talisman, sneaking out in the dead of night? What on earth is he up to? Before he could figure it out, a ferocious wave of demon chi suddenly washed over him, making every hair on his body stand on end. This is bad. Horror filled Wang face. The demon beast's aura was simply too terrifying. A Tier 1 late-stage demon beast. He glanced back to see a ferocious-looking demon dog lunging at him, and his face instantly paled. Any other demon beast might have been manageable, but canine-type demon beasts were experts at tracking. Once it locked onto his aura, there would be no escape. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, he was completely enveloped in a storm of howling yellow sand. The terrifying aura, hidden within the sand, seemed to be everywhere at once, sending a chill down his spine. No, I can't die here. I still have to reach Foundation establishment. I want to achieve immortality. Terrified, Wang frantically tried every trick he knew. But it was all in vain. The battle was over in a matter of breaths. Just like Wu Feng before him, he was trapped by Dawang's rock armor, completely immobilized. His fate was no longer in his hands. Why isn't this yellow sand dog killing me? Why is it just trapping me? Panic and confusion flooded his mind. Could it be that? An unbelievable, almost absurd thought flashed through his mind. Just then, Li Chang'an's figure appeared in his line of sight. He instantly realized that his absurd thought was correct. Li Chang'an, how can you have such a powerful spirit beast? Wang eyes widened. Who would have thought a mere loose cultivator in the early stage of chi refining would possess a Tier 1 late-stage spirit beast? Generally speaking, this was something only seen among the descendants of noble families. And they had to be extremely favored core disciples at that. It's no wonder I lost. For a mere early stage of chi refining cultivator, No, wait, you're already in the middle stage of chi refining. Wang was dumbfounded as he sensed the chi refining fourth layer aura from Li Chang'an. At that moment, despite his panic, he felt an overwhelming urge to curse. If you're this strong, why hide it? Were you just baiting me? Li Chang'an had no time to waste on pleasantries and immediately began the interrogation. Talk, why have you been watching me? Wang was no tough guy. Before long, he had confessed everything. It was Zheng Jinbao, that bastard lied to us. He said your cultivation was only at the chi refining third layer. What did he offer you as payment? Li Chang'an asked again. New identities. Wang answered honestly. The two brothers were tribulation cultivators, after all, and wanted by all the major families in the region. They couldn't afford to be seen in public. Zheng Jinbao had promised them. If they could kill Li Chang'an, he would help them forge new identities. As a steward of the King Marketplace, Zheng Jinbao indeed had the ability to do this. And as for Wu Yun and Wu Feng, we never coerced them. They came to us looking to cooperate, and we've given them a sizable cut of the spirit stones we've earned over the years. Wang seethed with resentment at the mention of the two. In his eyes, it was the two brothers' impulsiveness that had exposed their operation. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in this mess today. Li Chang'an asked again, where is the other tribulation cultivator? My brother found a cave abode left behind by a predecessor. It most likely holds some kind of opportunity, so he's been spending all his time trying to break through its guardian array. Wang Er didn't dare hide anything and confessed every last detail. Hearing this, Li Chang'an fell silent for a moment, pondering. That cave abode was probably the opportunity hinted at in his divination. I really don't want to go exploring some random cave, but it was an auspicious trigram, so it shouldn't be too dangerous. I'll go check it out first, Li Chang'an decided. He didn't kill Wang Er, but instead threw him into his spirit beast bag. He would only kill him after confirming that the opportunity was legitimate. It wasn't long before Li Chang'an arrived at the location Wang Er had described. The cave abode was behind a waterfall, very well hidden. Da Huang go. Once again, it was Da Huang who attacked. With little effort, it subdued Wang De inside the cave abode. Li Chang'an, it's you. Wang De was stunned, his face a mask of disbelief. The prey in his eyes had now become the hunter. Li Chang'an didn't waste time on nonsense. He immediately began his interrogation. Like his brother, Wang De was no tough guy. To save his own skin, he spilled everything he knew. His confession was almost identical to Wang Er's. I discovered this cave abode a short while ago. Its guardian array is already damaged with several openings. If I just wear it down a little more, it should collapse completely. Wang De was filled with bitter resentment. He had gone through so much trouble to find this opportunity. He had been on the verge of breaking the array. But then Li Chang'an suddenly appeared. Now, forget the opportunity. He wasn't even sure if he could save his own life. At this thought, Wang De gritted his teeth and said, Li Chang'an, if you spare my life, I'm willing to sign a spirit contract and become your servant to do your bidding. He had admitted defeat. Although he would lose his freedom after signing the spirit contract, as long as he was alive, there was still hope. A spirit contract? Li Chang'an's expression was cold as he shook his head slightly. I have no desire to take a tribulation cultivator as my servant. This man is resentful, not sincerely subservient. He could cause me huge trouble at any moment. Thud. Li Chang'an knocked him unconscious with a single palm strike and casually tossed him into the spirit beast bag. For the next few days, he remained in the cave abode, trying to break the crumbling array. Finally, with a soft VMMM, the cave's guardian array shattered completely, revealing the entire interior to Li Chang'an. His eyes instantly lit up. It really is an opportunity. Chapter 28, Taking Stock of the Harvest. What appeared before Li Chang'an was a skeleton sitting in a meditative pose. In front of the skeleton was a stone table, and on it lay a storage pouch. That storage pouch must be the fated opportunity. Li Chang'an's gaze sharpened as he stared at the storage pouch. He remained cautious and didn't act immediately. After all, the gruesome fate of Su Fugui and his group was still fresh in his mind. To be on the safe side, he sent the puppet forward to retrieve the storage pouch. The entire process went smoothly, without any mishaps. Li Chang'an breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you for your gift, Senior. He cupped his hands in a fist and palm salute toward the skeleton. Senior, your inheritance would only gather dust here. I am taking it to ensure it is carried on and glorified. With that said, he had the puppet erase the restriction on the storage pouch. Upon opening the pouch and looking inside, a smile spread across Li Chang'an's face. This senior's fortune is truly immense. There were over 1,000 spirit stones in the pouch. There were also plenty of elixir pills. They included Tier 1 low-grade, middle-grade, and even top-grade elixir pills. Something's not right. Why are there so many poison pills? Li Chang'an was a little surprised. With a flick of his will, he took out a bottle of elixir pills. This was the bone-eroding pill, a Tier 1 top-grade poison pill. It was extremely toxic and incredibly expensive. There were quite a few similar pills in the storage pouch. A normal cultivator would typically only buy elixir pills that aid their cultivation, restore magical power, or are for healing. They would never spend spirit stones on so many poison pills. Li Chang'an glanced at the skeleton, a strange look in his eyes. He already had a good idea about the senior's identity. He continued to search through the storage pouch. Before long, he discovered a jade scroll. Li Chang'an took it out and gave it a quick scan. A Tier 1 top-grade talismanic inheritance. A look of delight appeared on Li Chang'an's face. He had obtained the inheritance. For now, he wouldn't have to worry about the future of his talisman art. Then he discovered a second jade scroll in the storage pouch. This jade scroll didn't contain an inheritance, but rather a final message. Holding the jade scroll, Chang'an listened to the entire message. This senior really was a tribulation cultivator. The contents of the message confirmed his earlier suspicion. The master of this grotto heaven was publicly a Tier 1 top-grade talisman master, but secretly, he was a tribulation cultivator. A bit like Wu Yun, being both a talisman master and a tribulation cultivator to earn double the money, Chang'an thought to himself. With such an identity, he should have left behind more resources in his storage pouch. But the grotto heaven's master had traded most of his resources for treasures needed to attempt a breakthrough to the Foundation establishment realm. He failed. He suffered a backlash and was severely wounded. He had used the last of his strength to come here and leave behind his inheritance and final message. The message clearly stated that he hoped a tribulation cultivator would be the one to obtain his inheritance. He hoped a tribulation cultivator would obtain his inheritance. Chang'an glanced at the skeleton again, an even stranger look in his eyes. This fated opportunity was truly meant for Wang De and Wang Er. However, Chang'an had intercepted it halfway. This just proves their fate wasn't strong enough. In the cultivation immortality realm, fate ultimately depends on strength. The stronger you are, the stronger your fate. Chang'an put down the jade scroll and continued to look through the other treasures in the storage pouch. There were 2 magical artifacts. Both were Tier 1 top-grade magical artifacts. They were the Shadowless Net and the Ghost Soul Needle. Both magical artifacts were suited for sneak attacks, one to trap an enemy and the other to kill them. There were also over a dozen books on cultivation techniques and magic. One of them in particular caught Chang'an's interest. This 1,000 Faces divine skill is interesting. Once learned, I can change my aura at will. No one can detect it unless they are a major realm higher than me. This kind of magic was exactly what Chang'an needed most right now. Once he mastered it, he could disguise himself as someone else. He carefully looked through the 1,000 Faces divine skill, resolving to master it no matter what. Afterward, Chang'an continued to inspect the storage pouch. The remaining items were mostly miscellaneous junk of little value. This time, my greatest gains are the talismanic inheritance and the 1,000 Faces divine skill. Having finished taking inventory, Chang'an was very satisfied and put the storage pouch away. With a casual wave of his hand, he tossed the 2 brothers, Wang De and Wang Er, out of his spirit beast bag. He had already taken their storage pouches. The fated opportunity was also his. They were basically worthless to him now. Wang De glanced at the scene inside the grotto heaven, and his face instantly turned ashen. Chang'an, you've already obtained the fated opportunity. Yes. Chang'an replied nonchalantly. Wang De and Wang Er exchanged a look. Their eyes held indignation, but more than that, anxiety. The shadow of death now loomed over them. Chang'an, if you promise not to kill us, I'm willing to offer you a priceless treasure, Wang De said, gritting his teeth. Chang'an was slightly puzzled. I have both of your storage pouches. What other treasure could you possibly have? That treasure is too valuable. We hid it in a secret location. Besides the 2 of us, no one else in the world knows where it is, Wang Er chimed in hurriedly, as if grasping at a final straw. Oh, tell me more. Chang'an's interest was piqued. No, you must swear an oath first. Wang De insisted, refusing to back down. He stared at Chang'an and said, word by word, you must swear on your Tao heart that you won't kill me. And after I swear the oath, you'll tell me where this treasure is. That's right. Wang De nodded and added, otherwise, even if you kill me, I'll never. Xianxia. A cold light suddenly flashed. Wang De's body shuddered. Before he could finish his sentence, he froze completely. A thin bloodline appeared on his neck. Why did you? Wang De's mouth hung open, his face filled with disbelief. He had thought he'd piqued Chang'an's interest and could trade the treasure for a chance to live. But he never expected Chang'an to be so decisive. He had disregarded the treasure entirely and killed him on the spot. Thud. Wang De died with his eyes wide open, his head tumbling to the ground. It rolled a few times before coming to stop at the feet of his younger brother, Wang Er. Wang Er's face turned deathly pale. Don't kill me, don't kill me. He shrieked, his heart filled with absolute terror. If even a treasure couldn't sway Li Chang'an, what hope did he have of survival? At this moment, despair filled his heart. But then Li Chang'an put away his cyan-wood sword and smiled at him. I'm not a fan of killing. Just tell me where the treasure is, and I can promise to let you live. Ah, really? Wang Er was stunned for a moment, thinking he must have misheard. Li Chang'an nodded. Don't worry, I'm not a tribulation cultivator. I'm a man of my word. Hearing this, Wang Er was overcome with surprise and joy. He felt as if he had just been pulled back from the brink of death. Fearing that Li Chang'an would change his mind, he said hurriedly, We hid the treasure underground in a manor. The manor isn't far from here. Good, lead the way.